Before we begin the story, I will give you some background information. This story will take place in Yazoo City, Mississippi. It is part of the Delta or the wetlands of Mississippi. It is a swampy area of the state, but has some great southern hospitality. It has a couple of swamp preservations and is known for catfish farming. The city has a rich history and was established very early in the 17th century. For those of you that are not familiar with Mississippi or where Yazoo City is located, here on the map of Mississippi, highlighted in red, is the county of Yazoo. In the white map of the county, the red that is highlighted will be Yazoo, Mississippi. Here in this picture, we see the big Yazoo River in Mississippi. Of course, that's where most of your swamps will take place, is around this area. The city has also held several battles during the Civil War and later held a yellow fever epidemic. This city has many stories to tell, and the one I'm about to tell is about this Yazoo City legend of a witch. Once upon a time in 1844, there lived a mysterious and dreaded figure known as the Yazoo Witch. She lived in a quiet town of Yazoo City, Mississippi, and her legend claims she was beautiful, charming, and full of darkness. The town people of Yazoo City were fearful of her as they thought of her as a witch. Early rumors were spread about her being mysterious. During her days, she loved to lure unsuspecting victims such as fishermen or tourists. Her favorite targets would be the fishermen who enjoyed fishing late at night in the swamps underneath the moonlight. One night, one fisherman with red hair wearing his swamp waders was sitting on his boat when he saw this soft and beautiful dark-haired woman appear by the riverbank. With the moonlight glistening on her skin, her beauty was so hypnotic and irresistible to him. As she started singing, her voice carried a smooth and harmonious tone, flowing like a gentle stream. It felt captivating and comforting. This fisherman was so captivated by her beauty and voice, he decided to go to the riverbank. Eventually, she invited the fisherman back to her house, and once they got inside, the true horror began. This witch was known for her painful and evil torture methods, and that night he inflicted both realms of her methods. The witch would go on to torture him using her dark magic to inflict physical pain and psychological torment. As the fisherman was drove to utter madness, he was able to escape his capturer. It is that night that she was discovered as a witch, and he was the first to enter her house and the first to leave alive. Some thought this man was just mad, and others believed him as he told his story. Soon enough, some locals and the sheriff were determined to confront her. Not knowing what to do, the witch ran in fear throughout the swamps, determined not to be caught. She ran as fast as she could, dodging tree limbs and other parts in nature that were in her way. Her chasers caught up with her and found her drowning in the quicksand. They refused to pull her out, and she slowly sank further into the earth to her demise. Before she was completely covered in quicksand, she screeched, "In 20 years I will return and burn this town to the ground." The locals thought she was just mad at this time, but they left her body in the quicksand and continued about their day. As a couple of days go on after the witch's death, some townspeople start to go through supernatural occurrences. One townsperson claimed that if you walked at night, you would hear eerie footsteps and whispers behind you. If you were unlucky enough, you would see a ghostly figure of her spirit behind you. Some claimed that they had objects move and experienced sudden chills and cold spots afterwards. The town speculated one evening that digging her body out of the quicksand and giving her a proper burial would put her spirit to rest. Supernatural occurrences had put fear into them and led them to this idea. Time went on, and they buried her in a marked grave with chains around it. The chains were to be believed to keep her spirit at rest and her dark powers contained to her grave. This came from the fear and superstition of the townspeople. Exactly 20 years went by, and on May 25th, 1904, a massive fire emerged and destroyed most of Yazoo City. The fire destroyed 324 buildings, and almost every business was destroyed and multiple homes. The witnesses to this fire claimed that fierce winds were blowing that fire to make it spread rapidly throughout the town. The cause of the fire was never to be found. The area's weather reports do not mention any fierce or abnormal winds for that day in Yazoo City. This fire terrified the townspeople, and some that were old enough to remember what the witch had said, this had brought fear into them. A group of older citizens that were familiar with the legend made their way to her grave in Glenwood the day after the fire. When they got to her grave, the large chains around the grave were broken, and the headstone was broken into two. Some people believe that the witch escaped that day and buried a man there in revenge for the fisherman who escaped and got her discovered. The stone that was above her grave mysteriously fell and broke into two pieces shortly after the fire. To this day, the chains are still being constantly repaired by the townspeople of Yazoo City. The legend of this witch became popular in Willie Morris's book, Good Old Boy. I have not read this book, but feel free to. Many people of Yazoo City claim that the witch's grave was there long before his book. I hope you enjoyed this story as I did, and feel free to read more about the legend of the Yazoo Witch.